Hello, hi Amanda. How are you?
Hi, Nizam. I'm good. How about you?
I'm good too, and thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity to interview you.
Thank you so much for asking. I'm honored.
Yeah. So, friends, we have Amanda here. So let me brief you a bit about her. Amanda is a certified clinical hypnotherapist, especially, specializing in the transpersonal work. Okay. She worked with clients with various aspects, trauma healing, spiritual development. She is also trained in QHHT, which will be a major topic of our discussion today. And she is also an IEMT practitioner. She's trained in, psychology, hypnotherapy, NLP, coaching, and she is an alumni of the Southwest Institute of Healing Hearts. And she holds the certifications in mind body wellness, integrative healing arts, and spiritual coaching. She's also a certified yoga teacher. Okay, so there's a lot. And let's hear more about Amanda from her own words. So, Amanda, what interested you to explore different healing modalities?
Mm. There are so many things, but I feel like probably the key proponent for me was just having early childhood trauma and not having it diagnosed. And it led to a life of not fully understanding myself, feeling like I couldn't control my emotions, like my emotions always controlled me, always questioning my sanity, if my perception of reality was accurate. And that was very hard. And then I grew up also with mediumship abilities and psychic abilities, as many people who experience trauma often do and aren't usually aware of. So that was a huge catalyst for me.
Okay, okay. I think that's how many healers are born who have gone through and then want to do the same sort of like, I wish I had the similar work health. Wonderful. So could you please share like what happened in your life that you have decided to take this path as your full-time profession?
Mm. The biggest, I actually never sought out to be a hypnotist. That wasn't my goal at all. I was primarily working as a medium and I was a stay-at-home mom to a special needs child who also had trauma. And so as a result of raising him and dealing with his trauma, I then had PTSD, which later developed into complex PTSD. And so dealing with that and trying to heal myself and trying to help him was essentially how I developed such a big skill set. So the first one was Reiki that I evolved into. And I had no intention of being a Reiki healer. I mostly just wanted to restore my own spirit and stop myself from going into caregiver burnout, which is very, very common for special needs parents, especially empathic ones. We get it double dosed, right? So I needed those skills and those tools, learning to identify my own challenges and being able to heal because we also didn't have a lot of money. And when I did see doctors, they didn't seem to understand what I was going through. And sometimes I was actually having flashbacks as early as first thing in the morning. I'd be having a PTSD flashback, just hearing my stepson coming out of bed and heading towards my room. It's not the way you want to wake up. So the huge initiator there was I found a course for healing narcissistic abuse,
Hmm.
and it was mainly proponents on coaching, but it had some elements of hypnotherapy, and it worked profoundly for me. I'm going to give that credit to Richard Grannon. I've always enjoyed his content and his products. And so throughout that, I thought, man, I don't love being a medium. I don't love people handing over their power to me to connect with their loved ones. And I didn't want to have people become dependent or addicted or reliant, which can sometimes happen with mediumship. And I also don't want to be giving people false information. That's always a concern. And I thought, well, I do really like coaching. I love the element of people becoming empowered and self-advocating. And I thought, I want to do that. If I can heal myself more, fantastic. If I can help people beyond that, bonus. And as most people do, we take that first 100 hours of hypnotherapy and the world changes. And it's like, what just happened? Oh my God, I need to learn so much more because I was working on other people. And just through facilitating their sessions, I was healing and I couldn't
Wow.
explain it. So I needed more.
Okay. Okay. That's awesome. And Amanda, like there are different forms. Again, that would be a very different statement. But yes, there are different forms of applications of hypnosis, which for our convenience we'll call it as medical hypnosis, clinical hypnosis, spiritual hypnosis. Everything is different ways of delivering and applying it. So what interested you to go more towards transpersonal hypnotherapy?
I actually waited for Southwest Institute of Healing Arts to have my exact program ready. So I took that first 100 hours of coaching, that first 100 hours of hypnotherapy with the wellness, mind body wellness practitioner program. But the program I really wanted was the integrative healing arts because of my experience with healing beyond narcissism and complex trauma and the special needs of my stepson. I really craved something that was based in psychology that had more depth to it. And they had the transpersonal psychology built into their program with hypnotherapy. So it was the blending of the two. And so that's where I learned a lot about the nervous system, about different states of addiction, transcending addiction, how our beliefs can be just the hugest ally we have, no matter what those are. And so for me, transpersonal, it means we're looking at that whole person. I'm not just looking at their physical complaints or their emotional or mental complaints. I'm also considering their spiritual allies and resources. I'm considering their beliefs. And I don't necessarily have to have the same beliefs, but I did actually take spiritual studies as well so that I could be well versed in lots of different kinds of beliefs. And
Okay.
so for me, it was that concept of I'm looking at the whole person. I'm not just looking at one aspect of them and trying to help them through that. I'm looking at the complexity of everything they are and believe.
Mm, that's wonderful. And how come you started your journey with QHHT, Dolores Cannon's quantum healing hypnosis therapy? Please share more about it.
Yeah. So it's really wild to hear how I come from this background of trauma. And I know you and I are very much alike in that we are lifelong learners. We also have
Yes.
beautifully skeptical minds. And that was where I dwelled. I had a beautifully skeptical mind. And it's not that I didn't believe in past life regression, it's that I really wasn't interested. I couldn't understand. Um, Frankly, I just had so much of this life stuff to heal that I couldn't
Yeah.
fathom going looking for things. And of course, as you're training, you get exposed to different kinds of hypnosis and hypnotherapy and different approaches. And so it was in my first past life regression experience at SWIHA, that's what we call it for short. And our teacher that day had set out an assignment, the beautiful Linda Bennett, and she had assigned to students to actually use past life regression to solve a today problem. And a huge
Mhm.
problem I had was actually public speaking. I know that's probably hard to believe now, but back then I couldn't do it. I couldn't do a Facebook Live. I was so uncomfortable with it that I
Mhm.
couldn't move. And so that was the first life that I explored. And in that life, lo and behold, I was a parent to my stepson that I have in this life. And I was advocating for him the same way I was doing in this lifetime. And I was beheaded. I was hung.
Oh my God.
And what's wild is so when we did that past life regression, we didn't get to the therapeutic roots of the healing because we weren't yet trained in that. But it showed me where the fear of public speaking came from and how I would freeze up, why
Okay.
that was. And so at one point, I actually caught it on YouTube. I was talking about that life, and you see a big red ring form around my neck, which
Okay.
is a big important experience for someone who doesn't have belief to have, is to have that
Mm.
tangible, wow, look at my body reacting to this thing, whether it's real or not. I want to resolve this now.
Yeah.
So the public speaking no longer became an issue after that session, but then I had to go back and heal it a little more. And that kind of deepened me into the past life regression because then I had immediate healing and results. And it's like, okay, you can't keep diminishing this thing. When you've benefited from it, you have to acknowledge it. So I decided I wanted to go deeper. And I really liked the concept of the way Dolores, QHHT, goes to the higher self. And since then, the experiences I've had have been just otherworldly, phenomenal. There's a part of us that always knows what's on the agenda, what's in the plan. And when we really do our inner work, we get clear, we get to connect with that part and get some incredible guidance. So I knew that part of my healing was to also do breath work. And it's a very specific breath. It's a circular breath. I had a profound experience at NAV, which is an association that has a conference. It's one of my first hypnotherapy conferences. And during that breath work, I had a huge somatic release of trauma that I couldn't achieve any other way. I had done yoga. I'm a 200-hour yoga teacher. I had done flotation tanks. I had done body, bottom up, top down, you name it. I had done it. Nothing was clearing that somatic trauma, but that breathwork experience shifted me. And I went into a state of bliss and I never forgot it. So I knew that I wanted that training and I couldn't quite find a training that was in range. That training that the teacher had was over 10 grand. And I was just like, not in my wildest dreams at that point in life. Um, and so I remember having a session not long ago and asking. So when I say not long ago, this was back in October, November of last year. And I had two breathwork teachers in mind. And I asked higher self, which one do I go with?
Wow.
And I had a wild experience. And higher self came through and said, oh, she's not going with either of those. She needs to wait until about March or April. She doesn't have to go looking for it. It's going to come to her. She's going to find a local class. It'll be cheaper, is what it said. And then also, uh, it was just wild. So it was going to be a female teacher and it was going to be exactly what I needed. And I
Wow.
completely forgot about that session, moved on, lived life and saw this random email from a local place in about April. And I'm looking and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. They have this program called Theta Breath. It was under $500, local female teacher. It was everything higher self said. And as I was reading it, I just had that moment of remembering of, oh my God, I had that session and my higher self said this would happen.
Wow.
And so I did. I went, I took the training, and it's been transformational since then. And now I get to offer those same experiences and helping people deal with trauma from the somatic side. So QHHT has been one of those things that's changed my life. And for that reason, I had to step in and learn more. And since then, I've gone even further because thirsty mind. I'm never satisfied. I always want to know more.
Wonderful. And Amanda, could you please, like, you have shared your personal experiences. Thank you for that. And could you please share some of the lovely case studies you have had working with clients? Because there are so many miracles people share that, oh, that session cleared this, cleared that. So please share some of the memorable case studies that you have.
I have two in mind. My first one is the modality that I've kind of been developing myself because I had that history of being a medium. I
Mhm.
found that loved ones in spirit often find their ways into my session. And it seemed like no matter how much I tried to avoid it or focus on the session, they just kept coming up. And it was always a huge catharsis for the client. It was something that the client needed. Sometimes they knew, sometimes they didn't. And so it became a very regular part of my life. And so I do local meditations in a salt cave.
Mhm.
And I'd offered a group that night for visiting a loved one in spirit. I had a grandmother, a mother, and a daughter show up. So three people, they were all family. We didn't discuss ahead of time who they wanted to visit or why. And I just prepared them for the session. It was a group session. And I could see early on that the grandmother was connecting before I was even at that part of the session. She'd already met her loved one, and I could see that because I was a medium, I could see that her husband was there. And so I have that opportunity to like know when people are connected beyond just being a hypnotist. And for some reason, the granddaughter was having a hard time. She kept being uncomfortable, fidgeting in her chair. At one point, she reached over, she was rubbing her arm. And I kept wondering, like, what is with the arm? And so I'm giving suggestion after suggestion to release anything happening in the arm. Nothing is working. And I said, finally, you know what? I surrender. I'm going to let this go. I'm going to let it go to God, and Source will help with that. And boy, did it. I really had no idea. So towards the end of the session, I have an opportunity where I allow them to share their experiences if they feel called to, but they're no means having to. And I didn't know that that girl was actually a twin. And she was having a moment of connection with her twin. And she said that when she lost her twin, it was like losing a limb. And that's why the arm was uncomfortable until her sister came through and told her, it's okay. Let it go. Live your life.
Mhm.
And I never know when I facilitate these things. And so that was just a huge milestone marker of, you know what, mediumship is still meant to come through me, but it's meant to come through me in a different way where I'm not the one that the client has to rely on. Had she come to me for a reading and I told her that, do you think she was likely to have the same effect? I don't. I think that her having that experience is going to help her heal so much more profoundly. So that is one of my favorite case studies. Another one is during spirit releasement. So oftentimes doing QHHT, I was encountering things that I knew existed because of my clinical training. We had covered spirit releasement therapy, and it wasn't quite going according to plan with QHHT. So I was always really grateful to have that foundation of clinical hypnotherapy. So that way, if something deviated from the protocol, I had the skills to be okay and to guide the client. And there were more than a couple of times when there were things attached and in the client's way, blocking them from getting to that higher self state. So they couldn't get their answers. They felt disconnected from God. They felt lonely. They felt isolated. And I had one particular client who's also a hypnotist themselves, who had tried so many other things. He'd actually had a pain in his knee that he couldn't explain from when he'd had an operation. And this is someone who's a deep spiritual seeker, had done a lot of self work. And so through his session, I'm exploring, and we find that in his knee, there's actually a spirit disincarnate, which is someone who passed but did not cross over or go to the light. They stayed on the earthly realm, sometimes called an earthbound as well. And this earthbound entered into his knee when he went for knee surgery. And then it had been there ever since. And so I think the most profound part about that is as we were doing releasing, we found hundreds of entities, by the way, different kinds, some that
Oh,
were blocking him from his wholeness, from feeling love, from connecting in relationship. So it was beautiful to release all of those. But the best part was at the end of the session when he realizes he has no knee pain. The knee pain is just gone. And this earthbound was an elderly man that got trapped, wasn't ready to say goodbye because he was concerned about his family, felt my client, felt resonance between them, and hopped in and just said, you know what, I'm going to see if I can still love my family from here. And in the meantime, they held each other back. So having him come out of that session, realize the knee pain was gone and that it didn't come back was really just a beautiful physical manifestation of the work that we do.
wow, beautiful. And Amanda, could you please differentiate what is past life regression and past life regression therapy?
So you can do past life regression as a reader. I've often seen that done. There are various teachers out there who teach it. And the problem with that is they don't do the therapeutic change work that needs to happen. And it's okay to go to a psychic or a medium and to hear about your past lives and to learn about them and to understand them a little. But unless you're doing the therapeutic change work, which happens in past life regression therapy, you're going to miss out on a lot of the benefits. So when I first had that encounter with my first past life, yes, I moved past the fear of public speaking, but I still had somatic, tangible, physical manifestations happening in the body until I did the therapeutic portion to release it, to be free from those quantum entanglements.
Okay. And how is past life regression therapy different from life between life sessions, LBL?
Yeah. So, Life Between Lives is fascinating. It's beautiful. It's such a fun exploration because we can go at it from different ways. Michael Newton, for instance, liked to go from a past life and then go into the space in between before this incarnation. Alan Chips, the transpersonal hypnotherapist he discovered it with, actually liked to go through this lifetime, revisiting childhood, going back before the moment of birth, and then going to that space in between. So the space in between is where your soul has its full existence. And when I say full existence, that is you have an entire other life, responsibilities, roles, connections called soul family and soul groups over there. And so if you think about it like this is a really fascinating, in-depth VR game that we're doing for the purpose of elevating our soul, for learning, for experiencing all kinds of life from different perspectives and views. That is where Life Between Lives come in, because then we're taking the client back through, we're learning about, okay, what are the lessons and goals that they've set themselves up for this lifetime? Are some of those greatest challenges things that the soul had predestined in their pre-birth planning that they wanted to learn, to overcome, to heal, or just to experience? How is it meant to impact their soul's journey? And are there souls, which we know there are, who've made agreements ahead of time to be there in either role? And so, what I find most profound about that is we learn that there are no bad souls, there are no bad people. We need everything to have the vast experience. And we've all been everything, which is what we learn in past life regression. And we really get to go more deeply in terms of my experiences. Why did I have that experience? Why did I choose this body, that family, those parents? What lessons? And am I really embracing it and learning it as thoroughly as I can? We learn so much more.
Awesome, awesome. And could you please share like what kind of different services that you offer and how can people reach out to you, Amanda?
I'm actually going through an incredible shift right now where I am redesigning my business from start to finish. And I love that I'm in a position where I finally get to do that. And although I came into this work from the healing trauma aspect, which is why my business is called Healing Beyond Trauma. It's who I am, what I've been through, but it's also what I help other people do. And that's why I do modalities like IEMT. I'm actually going to be taking the advanced training coming up this fall with Andrew T. Austin. I'm so excited about that. I can barely breathe. And then I'm also taking a narcissistic abuse recovery program with Renaya Fraser. And that's going to take me all the way into next year. So my business is shifting into doing more healing work,
Mhm.
but I'm not stepping away from the transpersonal side either. In fact,
Okay.
I'm still going to be doing a lot of that, still going to be teaching, working with the Akashic Records, loved ones in spirit, and past lives, because that encompasses a whole other side of trauma healing that is equally important. And I find that clients that get to go through both really come out more profoundly well balanced, integrated, and whole.
Wonderful, wonderful. So are
So
there
that's
any
largely,
upcoming programs from you, Amanda, that people can?
yes,
Nice.
absolutely. So currently, I'm working on a clinical hypnotherapy training for the first 100 hours. I'm anticipating that will be available in 2026. I
Okay.
am also shifting to create my own modality with healing with loved ones beyond spirit as a hypnotist without being a medium, so that other hypnosis practitioners can come forward and help their clients in this way without having to have the mediumship abilities and to get a stronger, more effective connection, but then also have the therapeutic aspect in the way that I do it. Because although we can have loved ones in spirit come through other modalities, it happens with Life Between Lives and QHHT frequently, it's not at the same depth as the way that I do it. Even with spirit releasement from SCHH, soul centered healing hypnosis, where we have a larger focus on releasement, loved ones often come through there too, because sometimes they lodge in my clients' bodies. They had so much love, or they weren't ready to let go, or they had some guilt, some shame, some of the lower vibrations that kept them kind of tangled in, or maybe they didn't complete their contracts together in the way they'd intended. And it's just not at the same depth as the way that I do it. And I think it's that background that I have of having been a medium since childhood that makes it that much different. So developing a program and a certification around that so that more people can be out here and doing that work.
Awesome.
And again, 2026, definitely not before, because I'm building so many things that it's hard to do them all at once. And
Got it.
that's the way my brain works, is it does multiple things at once.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, friends, I'll be providing all the contact details of Amanda, be it Life Between Lives or QHHT or any other like breath work or any other trauma release work, IEMT sessions and all that stuff. And Amanda, when did you realize that you have gifts where you can explore as a medium? When did you realize that?
It took a long time. So I have memories from being about 3 years old
Okay.
with experiencing archangels. I didn't
Mhm.
know they were archangels when I experienced them. But for instance, I was 3 when Archangel Metatron intervened and actually saved my life. And I would not be here had it not been for that experience. But as a 3-year-old, I didn't have the rationale, it didn't have the logic or the understanding to know what that was. And it took me until it's so embarrassing. It took me until my 30s to really put it solidly into place and to start acknowledging the abilities and labeling and understanding with, oh, there's a name for this. I've been doing that my whole life. And that's
Oh,
most of my clients too. So when they come from mediumship development, they start to realize, oh, these are innate natural abilities that have always been with them. They didn't dabble in something or trade their soul or anything like that to have these abilities. They're not doing anything that's unnatural. It's organic,
hmm.
it's in all of us. It's just a different state in the brain.
Okay.
And so when they acknowledge that, a hypnotist would say, oh, my client is experiencing visual phenomenon, or, they're having imagery or something like that. And for the medium, we'd say, oh, that's your clairvoyance.
Okay.
We get lost in the linguistics of it all. So that's largely what I do. And so through realizing, through practicing self hypnosis, I had that moment of, wait a minute, this is very familiar. And so that realization helped me to know that, I have been doing this all my life. I didn't call it self hypnosis. I thought I was working with my angels. I was working with my loved ones in spirit or my ancestors. And we all have that. And there's a reason that everybody experiences them in dreams, that we have those moments right before waking up or just as we're falling asleep. It's because you're moving into theta, and theta is where those connections happen as well. A good
Okay.
medium is going in and out of theta. They drop into theta, they connect to loved ones, they get messages, they have to come back out of trance a little bit higher to communicate what they've just experienced to their client, and then they drop back in for more information. But your brain does this naturally several times a day. And so when we start to identify, that's when we know the differences. And I got so lost on a tangent that I don't know if I answered your question.
No, no, you did. And Amanda, please be honest with this question, because since you have
Mm,
been experiencing angels and all that from childhood, were you
yeah.
being perceived or looked as this girl is weird? She's a weirdo from childhood.
No, because I was
Okay.
so utterly shy that I kept
Ah,
it to myself. My family used to actually have a running joke when we
okay.
would the joke was that I had to be first down the hill, and they thought I was being competitive. I don't have a competitive bone in my body. If somebody wants them to win, I want them to win. I'm not interested. Actually, what was happening was up until 7 years old, I was aware of communicating with angels on a regular basis. So while everyone else was skiing, I was skiing with my spiritual team and I was having communication with them. And occasionally the communication was so intense, I would catch myself speaking out loud and I didn't want my family to know. So
Okay.
I wasn't
Okay.
being competitive. I just didn't want them to know. Um, but it didn't really happen in school. I think in school, I was more shy. I was more timid. I did stay more to myself and more quiet, and I just didn't tell other people what I was experiencing because we'd have like family gatherings and things, and we had a big family. And over time, I began to catch on of why is that man sitting in the corner by himself? He's looking at everybody. Nobody's looking at him. And
Mhm.
occasionally he looks at me and I feel a little uncomfortable. And it's like, well, if the tribe is ignoring this person, I don't want to be outcast. I don't want to be the one who breaks the rules here, right? The unspoken rules. And so I started to learn that to keep myself safe, I had to behave the way other people behaved. But again,
Okay.
if a strong intuition came through, if an archangel said, hey, cross the street now, I never questioned. I did so silently, and I told nobody.
Okay. Okay. And ever happened that you got to know the things beforehand about other people or about your own life? Could you please share something that really helped you because you got the guidance from the other side?
Oh, this is a very deep personal experience. So, as I said, at one point in my life, I got a little uncomfortable with being a medium and with practicing. I did spend a primary portion of my life actually trying to run from my abilities and just trying to be normal.
Hmm.
And that included with my first marriage. I really didn't want to be different. And I had a lot of experiences there. And so after working with clients, I got a little afraid because I got very popular very fast and I was quite good, and it could be a little alarming at times. And not
Hmm.
everybody's always ready to hear the things that come through. And so learning to walk that delicate line was really tricky. So I had stepped away at that phase in my life from mediumship, and I'm having a bath and I'm, in the process of becoming a hypnotist and a coach. And you know what happens when we're in the bath and we start to relax? Where does the brain go? Right into theta. And so I'm having this awareness that I'm sensing something over on the left hand side. And I look over to the left and I see my biological father with whom I was estranged, and he's glowing and he's got that unconditional love flowing through. And then I see his mother and his father on either side of him, and they're all beaming. And I think to myself, oh, shit. If you're here, you're no
Oh,
longer
yes.
on
Yeah.
earth. And I said, okay, if this is real, if this is you coming through, I'm not going to squash my mediumship gifts anymore. I will be a good girl. I will train people. I will help people understand. Um, but I said, someone's going to have to tell me at some point that this was real. Someone is going to have to validate this. It took 3 years before someone found me to say, Amanda, I've been looking for you for 3 years. Your father passed. And when we went back to when it happened, we tracked it to the day when I had the experience of his full body apparition beaming that unconditional love at me. And so
Oh.
it's experiences like those that and then I had to make good on my promise. And it's like, oh, why did I promise that? So that's when I stepped forward and I started teaching mediumship and helping other people understand their abilities more deeply.
So your clients are blessed to have you with your skill set at the same time hypnotherapy combined with past life regression, life between lives, Reiki, breathwork. Oh my God, that is awesome. And Amanda, one last question. Some people with gifts
Mhm.
have this question that is this real? Am I hallucinating? Am I going crazy? Is this normal? And
Yeah.
they're not able to believe their experiences, but at the same time, no one believes in them. This
Yeah,
itself can land them into trauma
mhm,
and being
absolutely.
judged, being judged. I'm sure you have gone through those phases in your childhood. So, what is your message to them so that they can heal instead of going the downward spiral, like how I have downward spiral, upward spiral behind me. Yeah.
Yes. It's a journey. It's not a quick A to B destination, and every part of the journey is important. There are going to be moments when your gifts wax and wane. There are going to be moments when your gifts are not as strong as other times. And so there's an element of consistency and practice, but also finding people of like vibration to practice with. My abilities strengthened immensely when I found mediumship groups to have practice with, because what we learn is people of the same vibration, enhancing and using their gift at the same time, empower each other overall, and then are also able to validate your experience. So, yes, we can have some validation on the human side. You don't want to get caught up in that. Your clients will not always be able to validate the readings that you give. Sometimes it's not the right time. They're not ready for the information. They haven't reached a point of acceptance yet, or even awareness. Some of the readings I've given didn't come true or solid for a full year or two. And then clients come back a year or two later and say, I finally understand this now.
Wow.
And I would say let go of attachment. It's not ours to hold on to. We are just the conduit. It's not ours. We don't get to be so attached to it. And then the other aspect is finding validation through your spiritual team. When you're working with a loved one in spirit or archangels, it's a two-way conversation. Ask for validations. They will send them. You can be specific, but I'd say leave room for grace, leave room for source to show you things. But asking for validation, having consistent practices and things that ground you are immensely important. Here's the thing I don't do that I wish everyone would. When you have an experience, write it down, save
Okay.
it, because you're going to come back to it years later when it gets validated for you. There are things I was told in my life through source, through experiences that I was like, oh, that's never going to come to pass. I'm not even thinking about this. And that have come to pass. And it's like, I never would have imagined my life or my path would have gone this way. Wild. So when you have experiences, write them down. There are going to be moments when you doubt yourself. That's normal. That's human. And I would be concerned if people were practicing this and not occasionally having some doubt, some skepticism. I think it keeps us in integrity. It keeps us in our ethics and it keeps us grounded. It's an important thing to do.
Okay.
And if you're really stuck, I help train mediums. I'm happy to work with anybody who needs that little bit of clarity, understanding, and help.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your journey. It was wonderful talking to you, Amanda. And friends, I'll make sure all the contact details, website, and social media links are shared in the YouTube description and on the social media so that you can reach out to Amanda. Thank you once again, Amanda. It was wonderful talking to you.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed the time with you.
Thank you.